It's Thursday, October 10th. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is one hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do just that is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, man?
Oh, not too much. A little fantasy film room. I always love continuing these from yesterday because then you give me some thoughts to marinate on. I didn't do much marinating last night because I'm a terrible cook anyways, but even my brain didn't marinate much last night. But this morning it stewed on some thoughts, and I'm very excited to talk about those later today. And the topic that you're going to start the show with, I'm very excited to talk about. Always good to be here, though.
Oh, I mean, yeah, always good to have you. And absolutely, the NFL actually provided us with a lot of news to talk about today. But yeah, it's always good to continue the conversation we have on Football 301. If you guys are not listening to Football 301 with Nate, myself, and Nate and Charles on Thursdays, I'm taking it as a personal insult. So you should be listening to that podcast for sure. So please subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Watch it on YouTube, the whole deal. We would appreciate it. I know if you like this show, you're going to like that show as well. But it was funny in preparation for this podcast today. I usually try to not totally overlap on topics. And I sent producer Colin the list of teams that we discussed yesterday. And he's like, oh, good. So you guys talked about all the big important teams in the NFL. Like, great. Yeah. So what the hell are you going to talk about on this show? I didn't have a great, idea in terms of a big picture topic, but like I said, the NFL provided us, I think, with three really fascinating storylines, one of which makes me want to, puke all of my guts out, but we'll get to that one last. We'll start with, again, three topics here that we're going to dive into on the Fantasy Film Room. Usually it is a bigger picture topic. I think these are all big picture topics here in the first segment. In the second half of the show, Nate talks about the things that he's nerding out about. We say the quiet part out loud, and then we preview Thursday Night Football. So, Nate, let's get into these three storylines here. The first two, we got some rookie quarterbacks taking the reins of their offense, one by choice, one by injury. Let's start with your guy, Nate Tice. Drake Maye is the new starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. I actually have a lot of thoughts about this decision to start Drake Maye, which I'll get into, but of course, you are the Drake Maye guy. If people don't know this, Nate had Drake Maye as his 1A, Caleb as his 1B quarterback. I think I'm doing that justice by
you did. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you. You didn't say 1-2. This is the. I had to keep clarifying. You can like more than one player in the draft. I want people to realize that.
Oh, brother, as somebody that fights the battle that you can like two receivers on the same team, because it's like, well, you like Ayuk, you must hate Samuel. No. We like them both. We like all. So you can do.
So
this
you hate
for
DJ
sure.
Moore because you like Roman Dunze, right?
Oh
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I've only been caping up for DJ Moore like since he was drafted. But yeah, no. So Nate, big Drake Maye fan. Of course, we know this is an interesting offensive environment here in New England. But with change, Nate Tice, sometimes comes opportunity with new players rising up here. So again, I'll get into my thoughts about this decision, but I want to hear just generally, what do people need to know about Drake Maye, the player?
He's a walking, talking big play. And that is why I liked him. He has a lot of more polish than I thought he got credit for through the draft process. I think a narrative kind of got out of control about his footwork and acted like he could never take a snap, but really he was more mentally advanced than you would think. That's why I'm pretty optimistic about how he can handle this offense even early on in his career. But he is big, he's athletic, he's got a strong arm, he's willing to push the ball. You even saw in his little short stint against the Jets on Thursday night when they were getting slaughtered, he's still standing in the pocket, throwing something over the middle. But the thing about him, and this even got kind of misconstrued in the draft process, is that he is a heck of an athlete, an excellent athlete. Like, he's faster than Caleb. He's a better scrambler than Caleb. Caleb does a little bit more runaround stuff and has great balance. But Maye is an outstanding athlete. He had an over 10% scramble rate, which sometimes is can be a double-edged sword for me. But Jane Daniels' number dwarfed that. So it didn't stand out as much as Maye's did.
Right.
But he's an excellent runner. And that, even for fantasy purposes, I'll just drop the stat of why I'm interested in this game, is the Texans run a ton of man coverage on third and fourth down. If receivers aren't getting open, if they're running all these blitz lanes and scramble lanes, you saw so many quarterbacks already scramble on this defense, including Caleb Williams, even though he got sacked a few times. Drake Maye can run. The Texans give up the most EPA to scrambles in the entire NFL. Ooh. So right there, I think we got some rushing production coming this weekend. because I also think it's going to be chaotic a little bit. He's going to probably tuck some. A lot of guys probably aren't going to get open against Derek Stingley. As much as I like some of the receivers, they are not. None of them are a true ace. As much as I think Jalen Polk will be a good 2, I don't think there's that ace. So I think there's going to be a lot of running here. But Maye, he could be accurate over the middle. He can push. He's going to try and fire posts. He's going to try and fire digs. He's going to try and fire all the big boy routes. There's some accuracy stuff when he throws left, and especially short. But that's the thing they've worked the most on with him. But it's all the other stuff that makes him so exciting, and that's why I'm excited to see him. He's going to be one of those guys. He'll get caught with a pick because he's going to try some stuff, or he's going to get caught with a sack because he's going to try some stuff. But his sack mitigation is pretty good for how creative he is and how strong he is and how much stuff that he likes to do outside of structure. So smart player, really talented. I thought that he would be more ready to play than others did, and I think the Patriots really some of this. And I asked some people behind the scenes there in New England. I know a couple people there. And I asked them, I was like, is he doing well in practice or is this kind of a thing? They're like, no, he's been freaking awesome in practice. That's why this happened. The receivers are getting a little antsy going, hey, I know we're not great, but I'm getting open there. And Jacoby's not pushing the ball. And Jacoby's a safer quarterback. And even watching that Dolphins game last week, I reviewed the tape. Some of the pressure numbers, people got to get some context here. The Patriots run a lot of empty. They run a lot of 7-step dropbacks. That's going to invite pressure just by natural numbers. They are not a good offensive line. We've talked about this plenty. But the numbers everyone's throwing out there and saying like, wow, this is the worst offensive line we've ever seen. Hold your horses. It's not great, but it's not bad. I mean, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing we've ever seen in our entire lives. I think Maye is going to mitigate it way better than Jacoby was able to, because Jacoby is just a below average athlete and Maye's an excellent athlete. So I think the running will be there right away fantasy-wise, and then the throws will come and go. I think there are going to be some highlights, but I'm sure he'll get caught once or twice because this Texans defense is pretty dang good and fast. And so that's kind of where I think maybe he'll get caught once or twice. But I'm pretty excited. I think it's not the easiest landing spot for a rookie quarterback, but I do think he's going to give them some interesting, more options that are out of structure that'll create some yards for them. He's an explosive play. That's what they need. That's truly what this offense needs so badly.
So desperately. So many good threads to pull on there. Starting with, Houston's given up the 12th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. And that seems odd when you first think about it, because they have Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter is playing well at the other corner spot. And they have 2 great pass rushers. I think they lead the NFL in pressures this year to the Houston Texans. So it's like, why is this team giving up so many fantasy points to quarterbacks? Well, you mentioned it. It is that scrambling there. And that's why talking about Drake Maye is so critical, because I think because his athleticism is not overstated by many people, and because he's like a white dude, we're not talking about the fact that he could be like I'm not going to say he's the next Josh Allen or anything like that, but he could bring you some real rushing juice. And from a fantasy quarterback perspective, that matters. He's 3% rostered in Yahoo leagues right now. I think that, if you look, not many people in single quarterback leagues really truly need a quarterback, right? But super flex, things like that needs to obviously get jacked up. And generally, I do think that if he does run, he's going to get in the mix, for DFS and stuff like that. From a fantasy perspective, he's going to be somebody that we care about. And I think, again, that'll be interesting to watch this week. Before we talk again about some of these receivers and stuff like that, I just have to get one thing off my chest that is driving me a little bit crazy about this. The amount of people I've seen losing their mind about well, how can you start him this week against the Texans? I just said, lead the NFL in pressures and all that. Yo, it's one game. He's not going to go out there and literally die. This is not going to, if he was to be, which I don't think this is going to happen, but if he was to be, I don't know, somehow mentally broken by one one game against the Houston Texans pass rush, that was going to break him. Well, he wasn't going to work out anyways. And I don't think that's going to happen. This is one game in the big picture of things. Who cares if he's starting his first game against the Texans? What are you going to you're going to do the whole, push it down the road? Well, okay, we can't do it this week, but I guess we could do it against Jacksonville. But they do have Josh Hines-Allen and they do have Trayvon Walker, and they kind of push the pocket around. Oh, week 8 against the Jets. No, I can't do that. They got Quentin Williams. Oh yeah, Tennessee Titans defense playing pretty well. The Bears front. We can't do
Jeffrey
that.
Simmons.
Let's just go ahead and wait till week 11. against the Rams. Oh, but Jared Verse is kind of playing really good football. Like you could keep doing this and kicking the can down the road and down the road and down the road. And then at some point, the other players on the roster, as you brought up, do know what's going on here. And I think that Jacoby Brissett is a good backup quarterback. I think some folks have maybe gotten a little over their skis about how good Jacoby Brissett is based on him.
They looked at some Browns EPA numbers and
just about to say that, just about to say, because I've said those stats before, but that Browns offense behind that line with Amari Cooper and obviously not the Browns line now, but back then, and Nick Chubb and the play, all that stuff, very different than whatever's going on in New England. Like I have said all along, we got to throw this guy out there at some point because he can create plays for you, and Jacoby Brissett is not going to create plays for you. So I had to get that off my chest because it's been driving me crazy. Just like, do you want his first start to be against the Texans? I guess not. I guess that's not ideal, but it's not going to destroy him for this to be his first start. You got to get the train rolling at some point. Like the dude needs to play, and they need what he brings to the table. So I'm not going to say this is going to be the first game I'm going to put on, my big TV here or something like that on Sunday, 1:00 Eastern, but it's certainly one that I want to rewatch at some point.
It gets the monitor for me. That's the number.
That.
I get the multi-screen on my TV. And then I usually have 2 games individualized, just separated. It'll get the monitor. So it's game 2 for me.
Yeah. We literally have the same setup. I have the 4 on the multi-TV, the main one that I'll put one game that I want to see. And then this monitor gets turned around to that couch over there. And if there's another game I really want to see, like Browns Commanders, then I'll put that on another laptop and try to just, mainline as much football as possible.
And people will go, oh, you didn't hear that commentary because I mute them all. And then only one I'll have is Red Zone channel on. I'll have it on my laptop, but not watching it, but the sound's playing. So I'll go oh shit, I should watch that game. If I'm not watching a game. And so I know something's going on if I'm not watching. That's why I get frustrated sometimes where I'm you guys missed an entire drive when someone throws a pick in the red zone. It's they had 10 good plays before that. Just stay off. Some of the frustrations come from that. I will say, May, and this came up in the draft process too, was that his redshirt freshman, they want Sam Howell was there. Speaking of Sam Howell, we were talking about before the show, and was a established starter in North Carolina. May came in, big recruit, was going to go to Alabama, lost the 2020 season. I think he was a COVID recruit as well, but then switched commitment to North Carolina. He's a North Carolina legacy, very athletic family and all that. They wanted to play him his true freshman year because he was so talented, and then Howell's Howell. So they redshirted him because you can do that more now. We're 4 games, yada, yada. And then wins ACC Player of the Year, redshirt freshman, and all that. Then there was a drop-off in talent in North Carolina. People were trying to make out his receiver that the Ravens drafted was a first-rounder at some point. Tez Walker. And if anyone watched, I was that guy does not know how to play football. And I can't believe he's the guy people are highlighting as his talented teammate. The running back's pretty good. But
no quarterback, I think, it probably had a bigger case of whiplash going from your number one receiver being Josh Downs to freaking Tez Walker.
8 games of Tez Walker. Yeah. I know, because he was suspended to start too. That's for transfer rules and stuff. But the offensive line in North Carolina and the offensive coordinator left a lot to be desired. And why I'm saying that, Alex Van Pelt's the classic B- OC to me. Everything he runs is staples of the NFL. So I have no qualms with anything he runs because I'm those rules are good. It's just creativity is a little so that's kind of where I'm at with it. But he's used to kind of uninspiring surroundings. He's not going from Alabama or a Georgia or Ohio State, not knocking any quarterback that came from there, but he is used to stuff flying around him, having to perform throw the ball as he's getting hit. So it's not as foreign to him as maybe some other guys. Also, this was some of my argument with Will Levis. Now I want to bring up, but I was he actually might get used to an NFL pocket because he gets smacked every single play. And maybe those kind of smacked him silly a little bit too much entering the NFL. This would be the last thing I kind of have on. This is more of maybe an advantage the Patriots offense does have against this Texas defense, is that they love to be in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. The Texans, and this is kind of specific, but a lot of teams are doing it against them. They're 26th in passing success rate against 12 personnel. And they've let an explosive play on a quarter of those passes. So 31 dropbacks. That is what 9, 18, 27. So yeah, 8 of those are explosive plays. And that is like why I'm curious of like because this is what they're going to lean into anyways. So I think there is going to be a shot play potential. You want to get those safeties moving upwards, Jalen Petrie and everything going every which way. So I'm curious if they do get to one of those shot plays because May's going to push it. And maybe this is Baker or Javon Baker's in there. One of these young guys are in there taking the top off the defense. So I'm curious. I would say if I had to predict something, look for a shot, like a big shot play from this Patriots offense, and look for Maye running around a little bit.
Yeah, well, interesting note. Just and this you mentioned Alex Van Pelt, like kind of how he came from Cleveland, and a lot of the Jacoby Brissett crossover here, a lot of like staple concepts. And I agree with you. When I watch the Patriots from like an offensive standpoint, it's not like they're doing anything where I'm just like, this sucks or anything, but they're also not doing anything. It's like, man, I can't wait to rewatch that, and really break that down or anything, So I just pretty staple NFL stuff. Jacoby Brissett is only 16.9% of his dropbacks have been play action so far. Really low play action rate, which is interesting because that should be talking about like a staple of this offense. Hasn't really been. I do wonder if they have like maybe a different plan for Drake Maye when he's back there because the run game's been pretty good in New England. At least like Ramondre Stevenson has been a productive player this year. Antonio Gibson's had some moments. I feel like they could lean into that play action a little bit more, especially I mentioned this with Sal Vetri on the show yesterday. I expect like a lot of the stuff that Flacco did in this Browns offense, that seems to fit Drake Maye really well. Like boot out of the pocket and like let that big man launch that thing down the field. That would be something to consider if you're the Patriots coaching staff putting that in the mix here. Because 16.9% play action rate. Only Geno Smith, Bryce Young, and Kirk Cousins are lower in terms of guys who have taken 20% of their team dropbacks. Like that
Cousins that low too is crazy.
Cousins is at 14.3, lowest in the NFL. That's crazy. The only one close to him is like Geno Smith and Bryce Young. So again, I think that could be something that we see maybe a little bit of a difference there with Drake Maye. I want to talk about Jalen Polk, who I think you and I both liked as a player.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks, he's run a route on 84.2% of the dropbacks, most of on the team. He has a 45.2% air yard share, which is not really, I think, Jalen Polk's game. He's not really like a vertical dude. He also has, and somebody brought this up to me, like he's a high like contested target rate. This is one of those situations where I think quarterback, offensive environment, like timing, all that can really, and role and where you're getting the ball can influence your contested target rate more so than your actual separation skills. I think Polk would be a great fit on some of those big crossing routes on play action. Yes. So he is definitely somebody. He's 8% rostered in Yahoo right now. He is definitely someone I think like worth sticking on the end of your bench just to see what happens if these guys have a connection.
Yeah, Polk to me was that intermediate body. Like he's good on digs. I'm just trying to remember from I felt like at Washington it was a lot of sail routes too and some overs and stuff. But the thing is that's all the stuff that Maye loves to fire. And there's the rookie connection. Like if you're following the Patriots and stuff like that, or just any of these rookie quarterbacks, you could tell right away, Caleb Williams and Roman Dudes, they were BFF right away. And so they have a little bit of chemistry. It's really coming on actually. But then Jane Daniels and Terry McLaurin, BFF right away, it seems like. And then right here in New England, because they were going with Jacoby to start, and even at the end of camp, even Gerard Mayo's going like, May's been better for the last couple of weeks. So, it's all the signs have been there that they want to play him, but they've just been trying to find this landing spot. But all during camp, early camp, it was Maye working with Jalen Polk and Baker. Jalen Polk and Baker, the two rookie receivers. And so I just think there is some of that natural chemistry that you get in practice. Me as the backup quarterback in college, backup all the tight ends, I had such chemistry with all the tight ends because Russell got to throw at the receivers. All right, Tice, you go throw at the tight ends and running backs. And guess who has some chemistry with James White, Jacob Pedersen, who was Big Ten tight end of the year? Incredible. I did, but none of the receivers though, because they didn't trust me with that. But I am saying that there is some kind of that natural reps that get built up here. Totally. So I think the run game is real though. Like it's not. Watching against the Dolphins, it's like it's a sustainable run game. It's not the sexiest thing in the world. They run 2 runs basically. But it is a real thing. And you can do that against this Texas defense. It's something that the Bills should have kept doing yesterday. We dove in more of the passing game yesterday, but even kind of watching it, they should have stuck with that run game and being bully ball. that's what the Patriots want to do anyway. So I think they do have some more answers than you originally think, starting a rookie quarterback with one of the worst offensive lines in the league against, I think, the 5th best defense by DVOA right now in the Texans. But I actually feel more optimistic. Like I'm like 5% optimistic as opposed to like -5. It seems like everybody else is in football media right now. A lot of Patriots offensive line takes. I still remain. I don't see any clips. No one posts any clips, but everyone has a lot of takes on the Patriots offensive line. So just something to keep an eye on.
something to note. The Patriots rank 17th in rushing success rate. So nothing sexy, nothing crazy, but it's a fundamentally sound run game with a guy with the back in Ramondre Stevenson, who I do think his workload's a little questionable from a fantasy perspective, but I still think that he is like a good running back too, in my opinion. And I do think Polk is a guy to stick on the end of your benches. So yeah, Drake Maye will be interesting. There's definitely a non-0% chance if he takes off running, 6-7 times, like we are talking about him as a waiver wire quarterback for teams that need it. But again, he is not the only rookie quarterback that's potentially going to be starting this week. It was reported yesterday by multiple outlets that Spencer Rattler has a good shot to start for the New Orleans Saints. And Nate, you and I talked Saints very briefly on Football 301 yesterday, kind of having the tone of like, yeah, this sucks because it just feels like the first 2 weeks of the season feels like a different lifetime. I know that's what I said. I will say the prospect of Spencer Rattler starting and not, no disrespect to Jake Haener, but Spencer Rattler being the guy like to start makes me a little bit more interested in a multi-week absence for Derek Carr. So this is a team, we don't have a ton of fantasy stars to talk about on the damn Patriots, but there are people that we care about on this Saints offense. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara. What can we expect if Spencer Rattler is suddenly just dropped into this mix?
Oh man. He's not a runner. I'll say that. Dude, he has one of the most natural arms, like talented arms that you'll ever watch. Like dude can just spin that football. He is another guy that's willing to push the ball. He's another guy that's willing to take hits in the pocket and stand in there and fire and deliver. He had to do it a lot at South Carolina. The last year, their offensive line was just woeful. Mm-hmm. But he is going to stand. I'm sure they'll make it safer. Again, this is the Kubiak offense. I always feel like I'm repeating myself talking about the Saints offense. It's like, yeah, it's the same formula. Yeah. They're going to run zone. They're going to run boot, and they're going to run a lot of overs and posts. If that doesn't work, or if they get a bad game script, that's it. But he has the arm to keep pushing it. I think he throws a better deep ball than Derek Carr. I know that's like, I think it's more of a Derek's deep ball. I don't know. Some of them are performative.
It depends. It depends on the
somewhere
throw,
he just
right?
throws it. It's like there's 3 defenders there, and I'm like, you just predetermined that you were throwing that. And Rattler, maybe it's more of a natural deep ball. Like he is more inclined to throw it. Like it's part of his football dogma, maybe more than Derek's. And
you gotta incentivize Carr to do that, right? It's
yes,
that's why the Rashid Shaheed shot plays work so well, because it's like, hey, we're gonna get this pre-snap look, and you're gonna just launch that post route to this guy, and he
no thought
that I think you can, and if it's blocked up well and all that, and like conceptually, he knows it's gonna be open. I think you can. That's why he likes those deep shots, whereas the maybe Chris Olave boundary deep shots he doesn't love as much. Except on the one play on Monday night that got called, was not even a real play, of course.
And everyone cried. I saw it instantly. It's like, Olave, no.
Yeah, it was me crying.
Yeah, that was you. That was what I heard. I heard that a million voices scream out. I would say I think the positives I would say is that you don't have to nudge Rattler to throw deep or to push the ball if it's going to be clean. And I think in the preseason, he looked like he had a good handle on the offense. I know that's preseason compared to a regular season game plan, but it wasn't like his head was spinning where I'm like, yeah, this guy's going to need some time. He was like ready. He felt comfortable back there, as comfortable as a day 3 rookie can look.
Right.
And I don't think confidence has ever been Spencer Rattler's something that is worried about with Spencer Rattler. But so again, why I'm saying all this, he's going to give him chances. There's going to be, even though it's Todd Bowles' defense, I think that if he feels comfortable, which I think he will more than most rookies that are dropped in like this, that he's going to try it. He's going to try to push it to Olave or Shaheed. It might not be as functional down to down as Derek Carr, because Derek, obviously has more experience and probably it's going to be a little bit more understanding against Bulls, but he's got a live arm. So if you really need one, like there might be some explosive plays to be had with him, even if he's going to take some sacks though. I will say that, but those don't ding you in fantasy. So
maybe they should.
They give you more yards to pick up.
Yeah, obviously from a fantasy perspective, I don't think anybody's starting Spencer Rattler, but
No.
why we're intrigued by this, or at least I'm intrigued by this. Tampa Bay, their secondary is a mess. They've given this up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. That's who the Saints play in Week 6. Obviously, if you watched Thursday Night Football last week, Kirk Cousins threw for 500 bills on this team. So I feel I was getting very upset about the idea of man, this could be a potentially really interesting fantasy game because I like the Bucs. It could be a shootout here. Their offense looks really good, and then we're just gonna get Jake Haener starting against this Bucs defense. But now that it's Rattler and a guy that, again, he is not a perfect prospect at all, but he does have a live arm and he's aggressive and all this stuff. I'm at least interested here and not completely giving up hope on my Saints players, and Olave obviously coming off a 2-catch 10-yard game, super frustrating. I've heard that hamstring injury that he's playing through is really dogging him. It's a tough one, and I feel like they just kind of sacrificed him to Trent McDuffie on Monday night. Just all right, we're just going to take the L here and try to get the ball to Mason. They're just so light at pass catcher, period. It's Olave, it's Shaheed, and it's nobody else. So,
no.
I don't know. Shaheed obviously super boom bust. And it's weird because I almost kind of want to just see what it looks like 1 week with Rattler before playing any of these guys. It's just such an enticing matchup here. So we'll see. I still overall like the structure. I like the structure of the offense, even if it is going to be more of a bad defense merchant type of offense, right? We talked about that yesterday, where good defenses can still they know what they're doing here. But the Bucs in Week 6, if Rattler's still starting by Week 9, Week 10 against the Panthers and the Falcons, we could be cooking here. But there's some games in here against the Broncos that might not look so good. So not totally willing to give up my hope on Saints players right now.
Yeah, it's boom bust is the best way to describe all of this. Shaheed, Spencer Rattler, the whole offense, especially going against Bulls, because it's just that's what his blitz happy nature, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Oh yeah,
that's what he's going to be. So that if you blitz a lot, you leave your opportunities to be gashed. So there might be a couple spots there, but it's all feels so boom bust. But just to speak to Rattler's talent, I think I had him 50th overall on my big board, or 52, somewhere around there. And I had him over Bo Nix. I thought Rattler had more, I both as a high-end backup, a chance to be a starter is how I grade that. That's kind of the grading system I go with that kind of late second, early third QB grade. But that is how I pictured him. I think he has more throwing talent than Bo Nix did, just with his arm and everything and willingness to push the ball. So that is, I just want to kind of drop that tidbit in here. I consider Rattler more in line with Nix and Penix than maybe where he ended up in the draft, and those guys ended up in the draft.
I wish Eric McCoy was playing at center for this game.
Yeah, I do too.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, final storyline that we got from the NFL. Nico Collins has been placed on IR. He's going to miss at least 4 games. I didn't even like saying the words as they came out of my mouth. I hated it. Nico Collins obviously was drafted at wide receiver 13. He has been the wide receiver 2 overall this year. Pretty sick. Pretty good freaking football player. He's not going to play the next 4 games. Nate, I know you told me yesterday that you were writing about CJ Stroud for the site. So I think this is a good time to talk about just the Texans offense overall. And just sort of what to make of it without Nico Collins, because CJ Stroud, it's worth noting, last year did elevate, Noah Brown when Nico Collins missed time. And I think there were some pretty bad Nico Collins' replaceable takes after this. I will never forget those. I still remember who said it. But there's Noah Brown playing the Nico Collins role. Okay, let's calm down.
Nico Collins.
I don't know that anybody's going to be playing the damn Nico Collins role in this offense, but we do have obviously some other big name receivers here. Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson got a lot of playing time. He's a second-year receiver. I have some thoughts about Tank Dell that I shared on the podcast, just how I think he's playing this year. To me, I don't know if you disagree with me, Nate, but I don't think he looks like the same player this year. You can clearly see he's coming back from a serious injury. That's how this stuff happens. He also was shot in the freaking offseason. So a lot going on with Tank Dell. He could get right at any time. He's kind of the big variable here without Nico, but just what do we expect with this whole unit without Nico Collins?
Stroud's going to keep chucking it. And I think I think Diggs, of course, would be the natural beneficiary of all of this, which I don't think I'm breaking new ground in saying that. But watching Hutchinson step into the Nico Collins role, which is the X in this offense, that Stroud didn't shy away from attacking there. Like he was like, hey, the look's bringing me there, and I'm a machine right now. Along with the reigning MVP in Baltimore, like Stroud has big of an MVP case as anybody right now. I think he's like the third favorite, so I'm not like going really crazy here.
Sure.
But that's kind of what the gist of my article that's coming out tomorrow is that this guy's playing probably the best football anybody in the league right now. And it's real. I mean, even with 2 turnovers last week, it was just still the Texans are a sub 500 team without CJ Stroud, which is, of course, every starting quarterback, but not even sub 500. They might be like a 4-win team because of what that run game is and how Stroud is able to just make it work in the passing game. Doesn't matter who he's throwing to. That's why I think, yeah, you want Diggs, or if you have Tank Dell, maybe they get him going a little bit more. They designed some stuff for him last week. They had like a bootleg to him that got extended. Stroud hit him. So they're trying to, maybe he's feeling a little better. Yeah. Now I think it's like, all right, now we really got to ramp you up. But I think Hutchinson is interesting. I wasn't huge on him as a prospect, even though I like my big receivers. It's in this offense and Stroud's willingness to chuck it to a bigger guy in that X role, break all those in breaking routes. Like he is a deep, deep, deep flyer. I'm willing to take maybe if I need it, but I don't think Stroud. It's hard to talk out both sides of my mouth because it's like, yes, the offense can be dang without Nico Collins. I think both of us were going like, this guy's the offensive player of the year, like so far, or one of the candidates for it. And so that's going to be incredibly hard to drop, to take away. But I do think that Stroud is one of the best guys to mitigate it. So like Stroud, I don't think will get dinged as much. I think they still don't have a run game. They still are going to be chucking it. And I still think he's comfortable chucking it no matter who it is. I think Dell will come along. We talked about it, and I heard you talk about like on earlier this week, I believe I saw a clip from it where you were talking about like, this is not the same guy, kind of the same thing you were saying right there. I would agree with that. This is like 85% Dell. But I thought last week looked more, okay, this is how I pictured you this year. And going against the Bills. So maybe he keeps ramping up because of necessity and all that. And I think this is actually smart by the Texans rather than just going, hey, let's try rest Nico for 1 week and bring him back in 2 weeks. And then he pops his hammy again.
Yeah,
hey, totally. IR 4 weeks, rest it up. Okay, we'll get you in a month. Also kind of maybe speaks to their confidence they have in the other guy. So I'm still comfortable with Stroud. Like I really am. Maybe I'm talking myself into it, but I watched that game the last 2.5 quarters. Yes, they had the turnovers, but that wasn't like one of them was a defender making a great play. One of them was a pass rush. It wasn't a receiver effing up, and it wasn't Stroud's progress that effed it up. So that's why I'm still optimistic about it. Which receiver I'm throwing the dart at, though, is a different story, but it's probably Diggs is the safest bet. But I am saying that Hutchinson is an interesting deep guy to like maybe fill in for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, just in terms of routes run, according to the fantasy points data in this game, 32 for Stephon Diggs, 30 for Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, 28, Xavier Hutchinson, 24. He was definitely the wide receiver 3. Robert Woods, 8, and then Nico Collins, oh God, this makes me sad every single time. He had 4, and then John Mechie only ran 1 route. Like he's not in the mix here at all.
He's a dirty work guy for them. So like he's never going to be a fantasy guy. He's a better real life football player than a fantasy guy. He's just a dirty, he's what's his face? Noah Brown.
Yeah,
like
right.
They're very similar actually. And then KJ Osborne, like all those guys, right? They're all cut from the same cloth. Yeah,
100%. And with Hutchinson, it's interesting because like I go back, I'm looking at my his prospect profile and reception perception. I kind of thought he'd be more of like an Alan Lazard type of big body, like interior receiver. So I wonder if now that they know going into this game they're not going to have Nico, like they've wanted Stephon Diggs and they've used him as their slot guy and their like layup target player, but he does have a ton of experience playing as a perimeter X receiver, and he's not the vertical threat certainly not the vertical threat that Nico Collins is right now, and he's definitely not the vertical threat that he was in his prime. That was the big drop off last year in his RP profile, was he just didn't get open down the field as much. I wonder if maybe, though, again, week to prepare. This is definitely going to be a smaller ball offense without Nico Collins one way or another. Maybe we see Diggs kick outside a little more and Hutchinson kind of do some slot receiver stuff because Dell is he's too small to be like a full-time slot receiver. It's weird to say that. Like, you'd think
times have changed, man.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. You'd think the alternative, but like the Texans already having enough trouble running the ball. They certainly don't want their 170-pound receiver who's coming off an injury trying to fit the run out there. That's how he got hurt, was blocking on the damn
who got
run.
hurt doing the same thing.
Right.
I will say Tank Dell just man, if he was 190 pounds, he's like the best receiver in the league.
I know.
Even there's another play this game. It was a short yardage play they had against the Bills, and Stephon Diggs is looking for excuses not to block.
Yeah,
and Tank Dell, who coming off the injury, like you said, 170 pounds soaking wet, is in there trying to block up the safety. And I was like, Tank, if I was a coach, I'd be like, I appreciate that. You didn't need to do that.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks, brother. Yeah, let's save that.
Yes, I would like Stephon to be more like you, but actually that's the vet move, what he's doing.
That's why, I mean, I've always said that about Diggs. He just does the little, like, the hand thing.
Oh, the
like,
hand
we're doing the hand. I'm blocking you. Yeah. Like, let's kick him out to the outside. And Xavier Hutchinson, 6'2", 203. Like, he is at least a big body. That's why I like that Allen Lazard.
I love that Lazard comp. That is fantastic. That's exactly what he is.
If you look at their route charts, like, well, number one, neither one of them are great separators, but like it's a lot of the just short and intermediate stuff. So I feel like he's someone like it's a deep flyer. We don't need to be picking him up off waivers, stuff like that, but somebody that you could at least monitor in that regard. So I don't know. Interesting player. I think didn't they both go to Iowa State too?
Who's that? Hutchinson and who?
Hutchinson and Lazard, right? Well, yeah. I mean, Hutchinson. They're both Iowa State. I think. Yeah. So that is. Look at that. Basically the same. Basically the same
Scout
player.
The helmet.
Yeah. Right. I didn't know I was doing it, but yes.
I just don't picture Lazard as an Iowa State guy for whatever reason in my head. That's nobody. He is an Iowa State.
Now you know who he really reminds me of is Hakeem Butler. No, but on a serious note.
Oh my. That's the. So. That's funny you say that because when I saw Xavier Hutchinson, when I was watching the game, my brain went to Hakeem Butler and I was like, oh, he's still around. And I was like, oh no, this is the different guy. This is a different big body guy that's over there.
Wasn't Hakeem Butler actually the offensive player of the year in the XFL this past year? I'm pretty sure he was.
He was like a monster.
Yeah.
He's just dunking on guys.
A lot of the deep dynasty bros were satisfied by finally seeing their.
Wasn't
Hakeem
he
Butler.
like?
Yeah, he was.
See, I was right before I dove into media.
He was very hyped up that year.
He was very hyped up, wasn't he? I remember that.
Anyways, not that we need to go down Hakeem Butler memory lane, but yeah, I think that's kind of again with Tank Dell, he's somebody that like I'm glad you said this because I haven't watched the film back from that game yet either. But it's like if he's starting to get ramped up, that's a good sign. Because I said this on the Panic Meter podcast, like he's somebody that right now I do feel like is in that coping corner zone where it's just you drafted him. He's not going to give you that because of the injury, but like that, it could flip anytime. I always come back to the conversation I had with Tony Pollard at the Super Bowl where he's like, I was not myself until week 11. And like, that could be the case with Tank Dell. Who knows? But in the meantime, Xavier Hutchinson and that role is definitely something to monitor. Okay. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about what Nate is nerding out about right after this. All right. We're back. Nate, what are you nerding out about this week? I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about this player.
Yeah, my guy. The Cowboys offense is it's a peculiar type of offense right now. I'm really trying to figure it out. Really trying to get a handle on it. I like Dak. I like CeeDee Lamb. What else we got? All right, so not talking about Jalen Tolbert. The run game. It's had a little bit more moments in the last few weeks, but it's still not something they're really leaning on. But a guy that keeps getting more snaps, and he is kind of a zoomer slash here because he's like a running back, a fullback, a tight end for this team. That's Hunter, and I want to say it's Luepke, but it might be Luepke. But he is, I know. Someone said, see, this is what messes me up when I listen to commentary and they say two different names and then my brain just goes, which one is it? I'm going to mess it up. So Hunter Luepke, I'm going to go with that. But he is a second-year guy, I believe, out of North Dakota State. Just a good player and one that Luepke, thank you, Colin, Hunter Luepke. But this is a guy that they're finding more touches for him. And I think because they trust him getting the ball and on handoffs, that this might be a natural solution for them being the Cowboys, and finding that someone that they can give 5 to 7 touches in the ground game, maybe even more, as they realize, Zeke is not the Zeke that left Dallas, and, the other Enrico is kind of okay. But I think Hunter is going to start getting more and more touches. He also is a good receiver that they use as a straight tight end at times. And I think because they like getting into more tight end heavy looks, I mean, they're also introducing another guy that they have. All they do is they have the best tight end strategy ever. Just get Big Ten tight ends.
Yeah.
Done. And they get them, like, they have more playable tight ends over the last 5 years, the Cowboys. That some teams have not found a tight end in like a decade.
Yeah.
And like they just churn out the same guy. It's the same body type too. But this guy, Huner Luepke, is just, they're trying to find ways to use him. Mm-hmm. So this is why I'm a little like maybe, a deeper league guy that I'm trying to snatch up just in case if they start seeing him more as a true tailback that can get some real touches. I think how the Vikings use CJ Ham is kind of a comparison, but I think Hunter is more talented than that. And I think that's why, again, they need this. The Vikings have other players they can give the ball, so they don't need CJ Ham. They get a carry last week, of course, as I say that. But I think this, if I'm looking for a solution in the Cowboys backfield, this is Huner Luepke is going to be that guy. But it's a dart throw for me as far as a fantasy analysis. But this is real. He's getting more snaps. He had a little less last week, but they're finding ways to get him on the field, which then usually means, okay, now he's on the field. Now let's get him touches because we can trust him on the field. Just kind of reading in between the lines of his play right now. So he's just a good player. So even in non-fantasy terms, just watch number 40 for the Cowboys. That is just a really good football player who's really enjoyable to watch because he's all over the field, just doing a lot of little things for that offense. And he's pretty good with the ball in his hands.
Because the last 2 weeks, snaps in terms of the Cowboys backfield, 62 for Rico Dowdle, team high, 47 for Huner Luepke. And then Zeke Elliott is third, 32. Well, Deuce Vaughn's got 3 snaps there as well. So shout out to Deuce Vaughn for that.
Shout out to Deuce.
Huner Luepke is, the distant third in terms of rush attempts, but he's run a team high 24 routes among the running backs. So, he's only got 3 targets on those, but still that's the same that Rico Dowdle has in the last 2 games. So I think it's an interesting conversation. One, because we always want to know, like, knock on wood, the whole thing, running backs, the clarity comes when injury and chaos hits and like somebody gets removed here, the pie gets smaller, who takes on the bigger slice. So obviously that's important to know, especially as we get past bye weeks at some point. Like if anything ever happens in one of these backs, Luepke could be a guy that's like a deeper type play, something like that. But really also it's important to kind of ask this question about Rico Dowdle, who I definitely think is a big fantasy conversation right now, because we, much like you, Nate, we're all looking for clarity in this Cowboys offense. You and I talked a lot about the passing game on Football 301 and how I came away from that film really encouraged by Tolbert's performance, but also the way that they've spiced up a little motion in there. Some of those tight ends, like just using them, getting a little bit of leverage as the full outside receiver on motion plays, things like that. I thought it was a good Mike McCarthy game. Don't know if you know this, he's from Pittsburgh. We got that storyline. We got that storyline like 13 damn times on Sunday Night Football. And I get it was a delayed game. It wasn't exactly the spiciest game, but holy hell do we know that Mike McCarthy is from Pittsburgh. So he really wanted to show off for the hometown crowd with all the little motions, things like that. We talked about the passing game on that show. We didn't talk as much about the run game. People have been getting more and more excited about Rico Dowdle in fantasy, but is this kind of a, hey, let's cool our jets, or is this like, what is the expectations for a player like Rico Dowdle?
Dowdle's just a fine talent. Like he's, I mentioned Van Pelt earlier being like a B-. Like that's him as a running back. So it's like, this is as good as it's going to get. Like that's how I picture him. Like this is him. Like this is how he's been since he's been in the league. I have interest in Rico too. I was trying to swoop him up once I realized Tony Pollard, might be on the way out. Okay, maybe this is the guy. I just don't. His vision's just okay. His explosive playability just okay. Like it's not like he makes a ton of guys miss. That was eye test again, but this is where I'm like, yeah, he's just kind of a fine running back. To me, he's a rotational back that has to be the primary guy in this offense. That's why I think this becomes more of a split, or, not maybe / 50-50, but more of a 65-35, or Zeke's going to get some honorary touches too. That's kind of how he's there.
We can also barely put his shirt on. Did you see that like clipping from the locker room? So he's Zeke at this point of his career, and he's also a little banged up too.
I had a running back. We're talking about favorite running back prospects. We were talking about Bijan a couple of years ago, Dane and I was just reminiscing about Zeke and just him at Ohio State, because the question ended up being like, who was your favorite running back prospect the last decade? And I like Saquon, but Saquon could be a little boom bust, some of the stuff he did. And I thought Zeke was like the perfect running back. So like to see now, and I was with the Falcons when I was there, when he was coming out of Ohio State. So I don't know if I'm sad, but it just does make me feel my age where I'm like, oh man, I watched your whole career now. Like he's a guy that is in my brain forever. I was like, this is one of the most talented players I've ever seen. Now I'm seeing this stage of his career. But what is interesting to me, and what you got to just follow the coaches sometimes. They do tell us more than sometimes I even realize. I just have to watch it. Is that Huner Luepke is the protection back now, not Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought Zeke got brought back, that was his role no matter what. He's the check down back and the third down back. Dak trusts him completely. They're putting Luepke back there. And that's interesting to me, especially with politics in the offense and how the things, especially in Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm just reading between the lines. You mentioned the routes. It's because he's out on the field on passing downs. Dak's never been shy to check it down. Dak will take those easy touches. So yeah, he's just a guy. The math is starting to math for me with him and his touches and his role. So like that's another thing with Zeke not being on the field for those plays and Luepke that's interesting to me.
Yeah, Rico feels like a guy who will hang around, like in my rest of season rankings, around like running back 25, 26, like probably a flex running back 3 type. I think the 20 carries for 80 yards and like fingers crossed he gets into the end zone is kind of like he profiles as that type of back. So that I think good level setting expectations for him. And yeah, like Luepke, if he continues to kick around in the passing game, that's always going to put a hard ceiling on any back. But I will say, at least just from my perspective, I feel better about where the Cowboys are offensively coming out of that Steelers game, and just they're finding some, like you and I talked about yesterday. They're oh man, we're in trouble. Is all right. We'll just put CeeDee Lamb at X and we'll open things up for other players. And they're starting to get to that troubleshoot just right around the same time as they started doing that damn stuff last year.
Same time.
Right around the same time.
Exact time. It was week 5. They got throttled by the 49ers.
Yep.
And then it all was great after that.
Yep. They come out in week 6 that year, and it's like, okay, we're putting CeeDee Lamb at X with the Chargers, and he gets 100 yards. And like, so
awesome.
We're right at that same spot again. And I do think, it's weird. I feel as if the season that we got out of Tony Pollard last year, which went down as a huge disappointment in fantasy because of where he was drafted. I feel like Rico could give us almost like a Bud Light version of that.
Yeah.
And Tony Pollard was still a top 15-ish back. And I feel like, again, Rico could maybe give us that season, but a guy like Luepke being involved in everything is going to keep him from being like a true every week fantasy starter. But there will be games where he's at least like this one, Lions, like they have a great run defense, but he definitely going to have some shots at the end zone, because I think that is going to be a high scoring game. So interesting with the Huner Luepke stuff. He's definitely somebody people can keep an eye on there. Okay, let's get to saying the quiet part out loud, Nate. We have 2 wide receiver ones. I'm going to let you go first here.
All right. The quiet part out loud. All I'm going to say is Alec Pierce? ? That's all I got. Alec Pierce? He's alive? He's doing things like multiple weeks, multiple catches. That's all I got.
Where do you think Alec Pierce ranks in receiving yards right now?
Oh, he's actually way up there, isn't he? 8th,
11th.
Okay.
Do you know? So he ranks 11th in the NFL in catches. How many catches do you think? Or I'm an idiot. He ranks 11th in the NFL in receiving yards. How many catches do you think Alec Pierce has?
Oh no, it's not a lot. It's like, doesn't he have like 10 catches on the year?
He has 13. You gotta get down to 21st in terms of the receiving yard rankings to get to another player that is below 15, and it's Jameson Williams with 13, and he's only played 4 games to Alec Pierce's to Alec Pierce's 5. Again, you gotta go just to get to somebody below 15th. Once you get past freaking Jameson Williams, I mean, dude, I'm scrolling down into the Rome Odunze at 50 in terms terms of receiving yards. So Alec Pierce is on a very interesting heater. 17 targets, 13 catches, 21.6 yards per target, not yards per reception, yards per target, 21 yards per target. So you and I know we're like, hey, Pierce is interesting coming into the league, but he was kind of a limited guy, and that looks correct based on what he's done so far this year. They have a quarterback who can actually activate him, both in Richardson and Flacco. And but this is, I think, the prescient kind of fantasy discussion to have about this, because, like, okay, so you said Alec Pierce is doing stuff. You probably don't think that role's going away. Michael Pittman is Michael Pittman. Josh Downs, I mean, is a freaking stud, dude. That guy is so good at football. He's just like a
Steady Eddie.
I saw Jetpack Galileo, great Twitter account, posted the clip of Josh Downs just running routes. Like, just basically said Josh Downs versus slot defender is just a cheat code. Like, he's gonna roast every single slot defender in the league. Big, small, doesn't matter. So all those guys are good, Nate. But it feels like from the fantasy world, we just keep saying, yeah, all those guys are good, but they're not, I don't think they're going to bench Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco. It feels like the tenor and tone is, once Richardson gets back out there, like, all these guys are screwed. So what's the point of talking about them?
Yeah, it's Richardson's show. They really like him there. I just don't want anybody to ruin it for anybody. And it's not just me who likes him. It's the entire Colts franchise and organization. And once he's back healthy, and they take it cautious with him, with Richardson. He's still so young, and they're just, it's one of those things that so I just talked to people there. He could have played in both weeks. You know, he could have came back from the hip pointer and could have played the next week. And there's just kind of like, well, what's the point? Like we don't want you to get hurt, and we trust Joe Flacco. So that's really what's all that's going on there. And maybe taking a deep breath will be really good for Richardson, because it did seem like I actually thought he was seeing the game well. It was just the execution of getting a little too excited about what he was seeing, where he was like, oh, I read that blitz, bounce, sidearm shot, 10 yards over the guy's head. And it's like, all right, just chill. You'll be okay. So I think maybe this reset's going to help him out long-term. Maybe, again, that's maybe the optimist about it. But for me, as that quarterback situation, like, Flacco can operate this. We just saw it last week, and he's going to chuck it, and he's accurate enough to get the downs, and he's going to chuck it to Pierce. A.D. Mitchell's another guy that they're kind of just slowly bringing along. Downs coming in is going to help him out, because now he can take a deep breath. But why I want to bring up Pierce is that he has a defined role in this offense. Like, it's just, and this offense has two quarterbacks that are willing to throw it. I mean, he has 2 targets over 60 yards, or nearly 60 yards. Like, that's just insane. Like, this is like old Randy Moss target chart. Like, just throw it as deep as you can. No, but the offense needs Jonathan Taylor more than anything, because he really does help out the run game. The O-line just, they're fine. They're good in the run game. The right tackle Smith just had awful game. Pass protection against Trayvon Walker. That's where Anthony Richardson comes in. But long-winded way to say, it's still Richardson's show. And I still I don't even know if you asked me, but I still have optimism in the passing game, because
I want you to sell me optimism here, because I love this receiver
I'm optimistic
room. So yeah.
And Steichen, I think, got a little cute early in the season with some of the stuff, but I think he's really honed in on that a little bit. So I think no matter if it's Flacco, it's a little less RPOs. They still run them, but it's going to be some more, deep. It's going to be a lot of what they want to throw with Richardson, because they have similar throw styles. Like, chuck it. So that's why I don't think the receivers will get dinged. It's just depending on Jonathan Taylor back there. So I don't think any of the receivers you have to worry about. I think what we saw against the Jacksonville, maybe in the second half, is kind of what we're going to expect. They were missing so many guys in that game. So it's so hard to go like, this is the Colts. Yeah. Like, I can't get around on the Colts, because they have a new cast of characters every freaking game. So it's just like, yeah, sure. Okay, this is their team this week. So it's hard, but I don't think the passing game will get dinged at all, no matter who's the quarterback, or the receivers, I should say.
That's sort of where I've also felt about the Colts, is that, Richardson starts the year, it's shaky, but he doesn't have Downs. And I just think Downs is that perfect quarterback settling wide receiver. Yeah, I really like A.D. Mitchell as a prospect. I think, and it was exciting to hear about them in camp. Like, oh man, once Downs goes down, like, what if we throw A.D. Mitchell in the slot. Like that could be exciting because his like movement skills. Number one, I don't think that's the best position for him long term. I actually think the best position for him long term is X. But Alec Pierce is. He's Alec Pierce. He's limited. A.D. Mitchell has more upside long term. But Alec Pierce is playing that role well right now, and he's clearing that damn space out for these dudes underneath. So he's definitely he's a sacrificial X that's also been getting his own bit sometimes here too. So like you can't just take him off the field. So it's like, yeah, we love, and I know they love A.D. Mitchell. I know they're gassed up about Mitchell, but I think they wanted to get him on the field. But then you're doing the thing with the rookie receiver where we talked about CeeDee Lamb on Football 301. It's like he is such a good player because he truly has a PhD at all three receiver positions.
Right.
Most dudes do not do that, especially dudes that are rookies coming from an offense at Texas where all he did was play vertical X receiver. So I think he was over, and the talent is there. You can see him separating things like that, but he was a little overloaded. So the fact that like that was what was going on in the first part with Richardson, then Downs gets in there, then Richardson gets hurt, then Taylor gets hurt. It's like, I'm with you that I want to see like all these guys just kind of together and before we can really make a true judgment on it. But it is tough because the passing performances were so shaky with Richardson and the results were so hit or miss that like I want Downs. I think Downs could be an every week fantasy starter. I think Michael Pittman could be fine, maybe even get passed up by Downs. I think that's possible. But like
I do. I think they trust the Downs routes more than any Pittman get open routes right now. I think that's very real.
And it's just like, I want to get excited about those things, but I also want to be realistic about where Anthony Richardson is. So it's good to hear that you at least are still optimistic about this thing could come together.
I am. And maybe I was a year ahead on maybe the offensive optimism, but there's stretches where I'm like, oh my God, this is one of the best offenses in the league. And then there's stretches where I'm like, why are you guys doing that? Why did you throw it there, Anthony? But that's a young team. You also, when you look at so many skill guys are on rookie contracts, and like the one, Jonathan Taylor is and Pittman isn't, but like all the other guys are like that. That's a young team. They even look at the tight ends. That's a young team. So usually you bet on post buy stuff. I think we already realized that they have a late buy, which is kind of disappointing. But again, sometimes when players get hurt, that's a little buy for them mentally. And then they don't have to practice and try something out. They can maybe just take a meeting, do a walkthrough and go, oh, okay. And it clicks for them a little bit. But these guys are just so young that, it's going to be a little inconsistent.
Take a beat, see those layups are there, and start taking them Anthony Richardson. Yeah, it's tough sledding for them defensive wise. They get the Titans, Dolphins, Texans, Vikings, Bills, Jets, Lions, Patriots, and then that week 14 bye. All right, I'll give my saying the quiet part out loud take before we take our final break. I think Drake London is going to lead the NFL in catches this year. Maybe that's not that spicy. He is third.
I love it.
In terms of wide receivers in receptions right now with 32. Malik Neighbors is number 1 with 35. He's actually Malik Neighbors still in concussion protocol as of Wednesday, so that sucks. That's not great.
Still on Wednesday? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That means he'll probably miss. That's kind of
not ideal.
The math of that. Not ideal at all.
Yeah, he's considered day to day. Remains in concussion protocols with the report I just saw. So we'll see about that. They were testing the limits of wide receiver workload there in New York. But on the Drake London stuff, and I know you and I love Drake London, and I think
still do.
I'm gonna speak for you on this, and you can tell me if I'm speaking out of turn on this. How they used him on Thursday Night Football, and I get it. The Bucs secondary stinks. Like it's just they're undermanned. There's injuries, and when you're already an aggressive defensive coordinator, and you're playing all that zone coverage behind all those blitzes, and you're going against a veteran quarterback like Kirk Cousins, who has been there, seen it, done it, all of it for freaking 10 years now. Like he can tear that stuff apart. I get that matchup induced totally. Still, out of the slot, Drake London, 9 targets, 8 catches, 117 yards, and his a touchdown. Like finally, man, I've been saying this all year. Like if you go back and look at the Drake London alignment data, go to receptionperception.com, look at the Drake London alignment data from his first 2 seasons. It's all perimeter X receiver stuff. And like London can win there because he's a good route runner, But his natural position to me is as a power slot, or at least like the Puka Nacua type of, we're splitting 60-40 outside slot, but we're getting you off the ball. We're getting you in motion. And man, those plays have been there all year. Like the alignment has been there. The motion has been there. The usage has been there for London from a deployment perspective. We finally just started seeing, hey, Kirk Cousins take the throws. Like those are open over the middle to London. And he knew that those were going to be there. And he just peppered him in the slot because that allows him to get yards after catch. It allows him to be that big body. Like he could be almost like a better version of Michael Pittman, I think is a good Drake London comp, like the souped up version of that, somewhere between the Michael Pittman, Puka Nacua type of player. Obviously I think like Michael Thomas was like the peak of this archetype because they would use him at X, but they would do like the power slot route,
all the choice routes from the slot. Yeah.
So, and like London could be closer, I think, to the peak of that archetype. So I just feel like seeing that usage there, he's targeting 45% of his routes from the slot. Like it's just, they didn't get him there all the time. They're not going to make him like a 90% slot player or something like that. But when he's in there, take those matchups, hit those throws. And if they do, like he really could compete for, I don't know, like 120 plus catches this year.
No, I love this. And not, they're going to be chucking it. They're not shy to do it, even though they got Bijan and Algier and all that. Cousins is seeing the game great. We got Kirktober going on right now. It's the thing. Vikings fans are sure to remind anyone that's going like, hey, Kirk looks really good right now. They're like, it's Kirktober. That's what's going on. I mean, we've talked about it plenty of times. Huge fan of London's game. The power slot thing was always where I saw him. Someone compared him, and I'm sorry, I'm not giving him the proper credit here. Someone compared him to Cooper Kupp coming out, and I was like, ha. And then now I'm watching him as a pro, and I'm like,
huh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, all right. I kind of see that role. Like, Cooper Kupp is always, no one realizes that he's 6'2", 210.
Yeah.
Like, it's still the funniest thing. Everyone thinks that he's a 5'11"
he's
slot
big,
white guy.
Big. There's a reason he's like chipping pass rushes before he goes out to reps
and holds up.
Yeah.
No, he's a big guy. And so London, that's his thing. He's a big body. He is so good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
I don't have his missed tackle or broken tackle once. And I remember looking it up and it wasn't as impressive as you would think. But watching him, the first guy rarely brings him down because he's so good throwing guys by. And yeah, it's not picking up 30 yards and taking it to the house, but it's those 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 2 yards. He's just always getting those yards after the catch. I think what you just said, you spelled it out perfectly. I think they figured out like, oh, okay, this is how we use you. You even look at the route chart from against Tampa Bay. I sent it to Colin, so YouTubers can check it out. But it's slot inbreakers, slot inbreakers, and it's just that's probably choice routes, slants, all that type of stuff. That's ideal for him. He's a big body who can get yards. He's not scared to go over the middle. He's got huge catching range. I think maybe when they get to certain other teams, he is going to be the primary focus, and not Darnell Mooney, who is still playing well. Like, holy crap, fine. I'm fine being wrong on that take. It's totally. Like, all right, sure. I guess Darnell Mooney's got this in his game if you target him every play. But I do think that they have figured out London a little bit, especially they're figuring out the offense, like a lot of new quarterbacks and all OCs and all that type of stuff. But I love this take because I think there's a definite path to it, especially if they get some more screens to him and realize those. No, he's got some Godwin in his game where he catches those screens. He can get the kind of simple yards north. We're just bringing up every power slot possible.
Totally.
Who else can I bring in here? Oh, it's like a late career Larry Fitzgerald.
Like a little Amon-Ra St. Brown flavor to him.
All the USC receivers, Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Drake London, and they couldn't do anything with them. But I liked all of them as prospects too. But yeah, I think watching him, I think this is a great take because I think the usage is they're honing in on how to properly use them. And it's just, there's going to be games where it's like, okay, there is more Mooney, but I think that Bucks game felt more like, okay, this is the formula that's working for us.
Yeah, it's always important to pay attention to how the teams actually perform when they use the players that way, and that was a pretty good game for them. First 2 years for Drake London. Again, this is in reception perception, so the games I charted: 86% outside as a rookie, 85% on the line. In 2023, 78% outside, 82.4% on the line. Like, I guarantee you, when those numbers come in for this year, it's going to be like maybe 60, and then like the off the ball snaps are going to be way up. So good usage for Drake London. I definitely just think is going to be a smash the rest of the way. Okay, let's take our final break. Talk about a pretty important Thursday Night Football game here, Nate Tice, right after this. All right, we're back. Nate, pretty important Thursday night football game, as I mentioned. We got the 49ers at the Seahawks. Seahawks are number one in the division. The 49ers are kind of, I'm not going to say reeling at 2-3, but certainly don't want to be sitting here at 2-3 coming into week 6. The over-under in this game is 49. The 49ers are 3.5-point road favorites. So, Nate, on this game, what do we I mean, look, it's definitely a big name fantasy game, that's for sure. Beyond the obvious players, anything else stand out here to you?
Yeah, I just want to see, it's a struggling 49ers defense a bit, especially against the run, versus a Seahawks offense that has some really good moments, but also has, had an interesting game against the Giants. Giants defense coming into their own.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to retake that. I don't know how to phrase this.
You want to buy back maybe some takes you were selling?
Yeah. I had the take. I sold it, mostly all of it, and I want to buy a little bit back. I want to rebuttal my rebuttal. Rectify that. The 49ers defense, we talked about this yesterday, struggled on Football 301, struggle with big bodies. The Seahawks want to be more 11 personnel because those are better players. So that's one advantage that I'm curious if they trot out their tight ends just to get the 49ers to try and match. So it might be a Kenneth Walker game as far as rushing yards, maybe catch, but the 49ers are interesting is that they're allowing a lot of successful runs, but no explosive runs.
Mm-hmm.
What's Kenneth Walker's whole game is
runs,
the boom bust running back. So that's interesting to me that it's like, wow, I do think Kenneth Walker can get there, but it's not his game. Like he's going to have to be a steady Eddie. So is that a Charbonnet game? Like, is that, I don't know. I'm trying to find his rushing. I can't find his rushing.
57.5 is the over under for Kenneth
and that's
Walker.
Scary to me. Because I don't know if he could break one off. So maybe bet under there.
I was thinking about that. I'm glad you have the courage to say it because I was kind of thinking
we haven't done an under bet yet.
I know. Yeah. And it's so scary against a team that does get gashed by the run. But yeah, it's like, 57.5 for Kenneth Walker. I could see the under being in play because they're not the type of team like the Cardinals are the type of team that's going to give the 49ers problems in the run game. But it's like a spread and shred type of attack, which I do think it's on my radar that I think Kenneth Walker's a great back and he's obviously can be super productive and effective, but I don't know that he's like the ideal back for this like shotgun spread run team or spread team that they are from a pass perspective. So I could see that being a little bit that oil and water effect. It's not going to happen every game, but I could see it happening in this game.
Yeah, I know. I almost want Kenneth Walker with like the Patriots as like their two back. Yeah. Like so it's Stevenson and him. So you have the steady Eddie and then you have the guy that can burn like something like that. No, that's a great point. It's that a bad run defense he's going to be good against because he can just gash them all this. And it's so hard to go, the 49ers aren't have a great run defense, but it's like against this they do. Against these looks they kind of do. So I've been looking at maybe some Jackson Smith and Jigba stuff. Mm-hmm. That's another one too. He's coming along. I mean, they're peppering him. He's going to have kind of steady catches, kind of I think no matter what it is. So that's one that maybe I'm looking at too, is where they have to attack underneath over and over and over. Geno has to spread it out. They have to get into these empty formations. So it might be like a receptions over.
Yeah, the only thing about that is it's 4.5 for JSN.
4.5,
minus
3.5.
Minus 145 though. So it's like,
God dang it! I just saw it too.
Yeah, that's why I kind of thought that it looked like if we're saying receptions, can he pop like one of these? Maybe the over on 47.5 for Jackson Smith and Jigba, just because they do still have good perimeter coverage. Although I don't know if you saw DK Metcalf talking like, yeah, this is the one year like I'm not scared of going against that defense. He basically said that. I'm paraphrasing, but like he's like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. Like this year, watching them on film, which is nice little bit of talking from DK Metcalf there. But and I mean he's playing.
They've won games against them. Like why are you talking? They've gotten like beat up by the 49ers for like years now, so it's not really
maybe not great, but I do think the JSN over on 47.5 just because I would love to do receptions, but it's just like minus 145. What's
that's not juicy. Yeah.
What's the point?
I know this is a tough one, and division matchups Thursday games are always you can always what's Jason or Jordan I almost said Jordan Taylor. Oh my god, where's
Jordan
his?
Mason.
Yeah, I would say Jordan Taylor. I said Jason because it was Jordan Mason. He's at 1.5 receptions too. Like because the Seahawks linebackers you can get after two. So these types of games, is it a tight end and a running back game? McDonald has been more zone, which is also can lead you to what the 49ers are going to target. But again, it's just
typically those zone heavy defenses are like, those are Debo games, not Ayuk games, right? So
yes. And man to man is the Ayuk games. Yes. So it's more maybe the Debo stuff. And then maybe again, they're trying to find explosive plays in this offense. His rushing yards is at 13.5. So that's another one that's like, does he pop one as they try to get into, they're trying to find more explosives in the run game. The 49ers are. And Mason is more of a doubles hitter, a singles hitter. And so maybe this is their way that they manufacture one. It's at 13.5 over under rushing yards. They have been finding ways to still get him in the backfield, get him touches. So maybe this is a way that they add some juice in the run game. So that's another one too, where I'm kind of betting the human element of the scheme there, where it's like, hey, we need a juice here. We need juice here. That's a way. So look for Debo overs as well.
Yeah, 52.5 receiving yards for Debo Samuel. I kind of like that. His catches actually at over 4.5 is only -105. That actually might be the direction to go with his. And then I do, again, to bring the JSN thing back, the 49ers give up 11.9 yards per attempt to slot receivers. That is the most in the league. So definitely I think JSN could be in play in this one.
Colonels are good offense to watch, as sometimes there's defenses like this, like Lou Anarumo was like this a little, or Mike McDonald on defenses like this, Lions offenses like this. I want to see how they attack this problem. So that is, the Cardinals are a great example of this right now, their offense. So who do they attack? What do they do? Bunch of tight ends, pound the rock, zone read a little bit, with Kyler in there because Bosa gets a little antsy, and then pepper stuff, get Dortch in there, move guys, Michael Wilson inside, play action shots. So they give guys, other teams, good, blueprints to go off of. But I have to keep the streak going where I mentioned the Cardinals. So I think I do have to say though, but that's what's interesting that you just mentioned the slot stuff. So that's what led to me my JSN thought, because they are trying to get him going too. So kind of an ideas converging kind of thing. Also, the 49ers got some DB. Hufanga got hurt again. Malik Mustafa. I like him a lot as a prospect, and he had some nice moments against the Cardinals. Also had some bad moments. But two, coverage is not his strong suit. He's more of a run and hit guy. Yeah. So again, that's tight ends, that's running backs in the pass game. So again, that's something I'm keeping my eye on if I find a line that I like.
Love it. A lot of different angles to cover in this game, and definitely just feels like a hey. Start your guys in fantasy in this game for sure. This should be an enjoyable football game. As I point at my TV, because that's where I'll be watching it. Yeah. It's gonna be an enjoyable game. Who do you think wins? You don't have to, nothing against the spread. Who do you think wins the game?
I think it's the Niners.
Yeah, me too.
It's just the Seahawks right now just don't. I like a lot of the ideas that they have, but I don't think right now, week 6, they don't have enough to get them. Maybe in the rematch, they'll have a shot. But yeah, I think the Niners need this win more too.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Nate, anything on the site? I know you got the CJ Stroud article coming. Anything else people should check out?
In that article, it's a 3-parter. I love the season going along because now I get to narrow in my focus, and it's a lot more fun. So CJ Stroud is really good. The Broncos defense is really good. And then Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback at LSU, I'm going to do kind of like a little mini breakdown of him. LSU plays Ole Miss on Saturday, which should be a really good game. Both are ranked pretty high. I think both in the top 12 or 14. So, but Nussmeier is he's climbing. He's making the case for my QB1 on my updated big board.
There we go.
I don't know if I'm all the way there yet, but I'm excited to watch this game, and I wanted to talk about him before he probably nukes himself on national TV, and everyone just goes, "You just talked about this guy for like 4 shows in a row? Really? You?" Yeah, I know. That's how it works. It's great. They're probably Commanders fans too.
Your favorite people on planet Earth right now. Well, definitely make sure to check out Nate's article. If not, I've been talking about that Broncos defense. Definitely go listen to somebody smarter than me talk about it. So definitely read Nate's article there. Like I said, that is going to do it for us today. Reminder, little heads up to the people out there. Yahoo Fantasy Basketball is back for the 2024-2025 season. If you hate your fantasy football team already, and I know many of you do, this Nico Collins thing is breaking my heart. Or Nico Collins' injury might be hurting me enough to push me away from the rest of the fantasy football season. Obviously not. I'm being facetious. But if it's got you so broken down that you need to just think about a different fantasy sport, Yahoo Fantasy Basketball, it's back. Go create or join a private league with friends, or join a public league to show the world your fantasy skills and how, hey, you got unlucky this year in football with injuries. Go play basketball. To sign up, visit yahoo.com/fantasy basketball. On Friday, this show will be back, not talking about fantasy basketball, but Tara Roberts and Andy Behrens will join me to preview all of Sunday's Week 6 action. Until then, we're out.